What up, what up? It's your boy Jerry here, back in the studio to break down my new track, Know About, that came out last Friday. Let's jump right into it. Starting off with the drums like last time, this is how they sound at the first part of the drop. I got this group right here, the kick and clap, where I've got my kick, the clap group, and then the reverse clap. I have them all together because I go ahead and I soft clip that to reduce some dynamics that help with the limiting in the mastering chain. That's how the kick sounds on its own. Got the clap and the reverse right here. The clap group without any processing sounds really harsh. That's how it sounds. So here I've got this clap processing rack that I like to use, and I also have a nice reverb send rack with it. I go ahead and I sidechain the dry signal to the wet signal so I get a tighter reverb tail. There, after that, I got this filtered group underneath, which has got my hi-hats, my offbeat snare, ride, and 808 rim. That's how that sounds. For my open hi-hats, I got three main layers right here. This noisy shaker layer. Then I've got my main 909 right here. Then I got this other layer that I made an operator one day when I was doing a sound design session, and that sounds like this. Underneath of that, I've got this closed hi-hat layer. This has got a groove applied to it to add some groove to the track. And I'm using the MPC 16 Swing 61. Moving on underneath, we got the offbeat snare, which plays in the second half of the drop as well as the post drop. Then we got a ride here, classic 808 rim, and then a cowbell. And this cowbell also plays in the second half of the drop as well as in the post drop, and this adds to the ethnic feel in the track. Here's how it sounds. And then the post-drop section, I go ahead and I add a conga to it to give a little bit of a call and response between the two percussions. And that gives it overall a little bit of a tech house vibe. But I go ahead and I switch up the vibe here in the second drop in the fake out where I have this trap flip group. And here I've got a trap snare, a rim, as well as some tight hi-hats. And this is what that sounds like. Then I've got a little fill right here with the percussion. And then I go ahead and have an impact to end the fill. Moving on to the next section, we got the bass group. This is how it sounds on its own. This is where a lot of the groove from the track comes in. Starting off, I got this nice growl that is on the downbeat. And I made that in Serum, went ahead and I bounced it out. What I also made in Serum is right here, I got this tech house bass line, and this is kind of what repeats throughout the track. And this is the patch. I got FM from A here into oscillator B. Added a couple voices of unison with a lower blend than normal to add a little bit of width. And then I'm using an asymmetric plus minus here on oscillator A. A little bit of EQ, distortion, and an MG Low 18 filter from envelope 2. That's how that sounds. Then I got this operator bass, which I went ahead and I added a little bit of width to it and resampled is like this. And that came from a sound design session of mine a long time ago. So here in my mids and highs group, I've got a couple things going on. Most prominently, I've got the flute and then the wide saw call and response. To talk about the flute, I went ahead and I made it in Contact, and I did it in the factory library, ironically. So that's here. If you go to the top layer, you go to World, and you go to Flutes, and it's the Irish flute. I went ahead and I resampled that out, because in Contact, I've noticed sometimes the notes don't start exactly where the MIDI note is positioned. So I like to go ahead and make sure everything was perfect on the grid and nothing was playing any 16th notes, so I was able to go ahead and not worry about the swing. So here's what the flute sounds like with the reverse going into it. And then here comes the lower octave. So a lot of processing going on here. If I take it all off, it sounds really dry and kind of bland. That's what it sounds like. So it doesn't have that vibe, doesn't have the energy, but it then leads into the wide saw. And this is a cool melody that my friend came up with actually. When I showed him the track, he started singing it. And this is just a typical saw right here in Serum. And it's got a lot of processing on here to make it darker. But just two voices unison, randomness all the way down, and then fairly detuned. And that also drops down another octave in the part B of the second half. Another thing to mention is I got the M1 piano here for the stabs. And like I said, this is the Club Date M1 preset, classic. Just playing the root chord here in the MIDI. And I bounced that out because I wanted to go ahead and add a little fade. Then there's some delay on that. And then I use that as well here in the breakdown. And yeah, it's one of the main elements that helps add some groove to the track. Then the last thing I'm going to go over here is the vocal. It's a nice simple phrase that I got from a Barely Alive pack. I've been trying to avoid using non-original vocals, but this one worked really well. And actually the entire sample is like really short. I think it's like just that. So that's all you need to write a song. But this is what it sounds like with all the processing on it.
You know about that. You know about that.
And if I take the processing off,
You know about that. You know about.
not too much different, just a little darker, a little overdriven. And I go ahead and I fade it out here during the build-up, and I have some delay on it, as you just heard. It helps add some ambience. So in parts like the drop,
You know about.
you can hear it echo into the drop. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you learned something. If you got any questions, drop them down in the comments. I'll be happy to answer. Peace.
You know about that.